The National Association of Corporate Directors, Silicon Valley Chapter, presents
Good morning. I had the distinct pleasure to moderate a panel with three distinguished panelists this morning on risk management and the failures that have seemed to have incurred with higher frequency in the inability of boards to appropriately manage that risk. The three panelists were Darrell Rains, a partner of Morrison & Forrester, Deidre Flaherty, a partner of Stone Turn Group in San Francisco, and Bob Finocchio, who's both a private investor and a member of several public and private boards, including chairman of two audit committees. Bob, thanks again for being a member of the panel this morning. It seems that managing risk is fraught with all sorts of difficulties. Are there some principles that you could share with us as how that might be best done by a board member?
Whenever I think about risk or talk about risk from the context of being in the boardroom, an important first principle is that a director's job, the board's job, is not to minimize risk. A director's job is to make sure the company takes the right risks, knows what risks they're taking. And usually I sit on audit committees, and a mistake many boards make is they just dump risk management on the audit committee because those guys probably understand risk. So I think it's very, very important for the board as a whole to know it owns the overseeing of risk in the company. Management's job is to manage risk. And an important first principle is to develop a risk template for the company. Identify the major buckets of risk in the company and who owns them. Some buckets of risk, financial reporting risk, IT risk, frequently are owned by the audit committee, and the charter ought to reflect that. Compensation disclosures, compensation programs, that's probably owned by the comp committee. And other risks having to do with strategy, having to do with core operations need to be owned by the board as a whole. It's important to note that if we look at all the big business failures in the last several years, where say market cap has crashed more than 50%, 80% of the time, it's not financial reporting, it's not fraud, it's core strategy, core operational. And the board has to be sure when it's talking about risk that it's focused on the core of the business, not just financial reporting and not just fraud.
Reflecting on recent history, it seems to me that the greatest risks, the existential risks, are not external risks such as earthquakes, tsunamis, nuclear power plants flooding and blowing up, but risks associated with the core activities of an organization. Why is that the case?
Well, that's where the money is. So how can a board deal with the big risk? How can a board deal with the 80% of the risks which are strategic and operational? And I think it's pretty straightforward. It really starts by having a profound understanding of what business are we really in. Sounds simple, but it's sometimes hard to answer the question. What business are we really in? How do we really make money? And third, how do our customers make money? The people we do business with, how do they make money? If you know the answers to those questions, you probably understand where most of the risk is in your company.
Bob, you're both an experienced board member as well as being an experienced member of several audit committees. Can you relate some of your experiences as how boards have behaved effectively in managing risk?
You know, it's interesting. In my experience, when boards make the biggest mistakes, when companies make the biggest mistakes, is when business is going well, because you are blinded by your success. Everybody is happy. Margins are good, profits are good, you're growing, you're gaining market share. And it's very easy to let your guard down at that point in time. That's when companies and CEOs, that's when boards probably defer too much to CEOs because they're rock stars. How can you challenge their success? But that's when the mistakes are made. Out of hubris, out of overconfidence. So what should a board do? Not just say, hey, it's great, business is good. Yeah, it's great, business is good, but understand, why are we making so much money? How are we making so much money? Why are our customers willing to pay us so much money for whatever it is we're selling them? Have our competitors noticed that we're making this much money? What are they going to do about it? And gee, we have a lot of money in the bank. Let's go do an acquisition. Well, why? How? How are we going to make money with that? It's just over and over again. You get in a room where everybody is congratulating themselves. That's when horrible mistakes are made. Conversely, when business is bad, when you have already been exposed to an existential threat, decision-making gets very crisp. When you face death, decision-making is very, very crisp.
Hey, Bob, it's a pleasure, as always, spending time with you, dealing with an issue that I think is on the minds of many board members, both here in the Valley and elsewhere.
Thanks, Jim. It was a great experience.